In this video, we're going to have a look at how we can input data to your database. So during the last video, we looked at how you can define the data fields that you were going to include in a database. We had a look at the data types and different types of validation and techniques that you can use to ensure that the data inputted would be accurate. We had a look at the default and the units, and then we saved this define tab. So once you've done that, you go onto the form tab. So you just click on the word form, and then you're presented with this data entry form here. So essentially you've created this back when you were defining the data fields. So name, age, position, more than 50 caps, height and picture. What you're going to do now, the next stage, is you actually input the data that you can find on the Welsh rugby players. Just to show you some validation techniques here, I selected number for age. If I try to write 20, I'm trying to write 20 here, as you can see it deletes it instantly, so I can't actually type in here. But if I type the number in, it will it will sort of accept that. Same goes for height. If I try to type something in, it will automatically delete it. So that proves to me that the validation is working. So I'm going to start inputting the data. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start off with George North. So that's his name. His age, I'm not sure how old he is, I'm going to say he's 27. Position, so as we discussed in the previous video, as opposed to me typing wing in here, I'd select that from the drop down menu. Again, it's to do with the accuracy. As I said in the previous video, I could type the first wing in with a capital W, the second one with a lowercase w. That means if I search for any wing players, it wouldn't be a true reflection of the data because the word wing has been spelled differently. So by using the drop-down list now, I'm giving myself that peace of mind that all the data will be inputted consistently. So this is the bool that we looked at in the previous video, more than 50 caps. If he has got more than 50, you select it. If he hasn't, you just don't do anything. I'm not sure about Jordan Orr, so I'm going to leave that blank. Height, he's quite tall, so I'm going to set that to 210 centimetres. Again, I'm not sure. I'd need to check on the WRE website to see what his height is. So the last one is picture. All I need to do here is click on the Polaroid picture and the arrow that points inside it, and I've got options. The one that you would use most often than not is this second one. This icon here refers to Google search. So what this does, it opens a Google search for you, and you don't actually have to leave the software to go to Google to look for your pictures. So I'll have a look if I can find any pictures of George North. Yeah, it's filtered the images down, so you won't find any nasty stuff here because it's all filtered for use by children. So I've got an image of George North here, so I can actually use that one. I've only got one option though. Another thing you can do from this menu here is you can upload an image from your own computer. So you can go and find images on Google Images beforehand and download them, or you can supply them to your pupils beforehand, for example using some type of cloud server. You can use Google Drive, you can use Office 365 OneDrive to share the images beforehand with your pupils. So the images is downloaded on my computer, so I'm going to actually find the images. Here we got George North, so I'm going to click on that and we've got a picture of George North uploaded. So I've inputted the data for George North. Next step is clicking on this disk, the floppy disk icon here, and that will save the record. So if I click on it, everything disappears. Don't panic, it's all still there. All it does is it opens a new data entry form and it prompts me then to fill data in on another rugby player. So if I go back one record, the data is still there. I'm going to add the new record now. So I'm going to add Ken Owens. I'm not sure how old he is. I'm going to say he's 31, and he is a hooker. Has he got more than 50 caps? I'm quite sure he's got So I'm going to add some additional data here. It's 189 centimeters. I'm not sure what his height is. Picture, again, I'm going to upload the picture from my computer. So here's a picture of Ken. And that's now been uploaded. So I'm going to save that record. Third one, I'm going to put in Jonathan Davis. I'm going to say that he's 30. He's a centre. He's got about 50 caps. I'm quite sure he has. Height, I'm going to say that he is 190 centimetres. And last thing, I'm going to upload the picture again from my computer. So here's a picture. I'm going to save. So I've inputted now data on 3 different rugby players. Obviously, pupils carry on doing this now until they've completed the whole squad, or at least the first 15 that starts the match and so on. So they would carry on. As an example, I'm just going to go on to the next stage of the process. You can scroll through the records by just clicking on the arrows here to go through the records that you've inputted. But a nicer way to see the data is by clicking on the Table tab. And if you click on that Table tab, then essentially you're presented with data in a spreadsheet format. So all the data is presented along the rows. So as you can see, you've got 3 data entries. If you would have completed the whole squad, you would have something like 30 different players appear down this list. So the next stage of the process is asking the question, why have we actually done this? So why have we inputted data on the different rugby players? Is it just to get this sort of overview of the whole squad, or is there a more purposeful reason for doing it? And usually the reason for doing this is so you can search the data and find some facts and find some patterns in the data as well. So it's all good and well, we've completed the database, but children have to understand why, and the why is the most important thing in this whole task. What we can do at this point now is use this icon here, and this allows us then to search the data. So if I click on that search icon, I've got 4 boxes that appear on the top of my page. So the question I'm going to answer first of all, and this might have been set by another pupil in my class, it might be set by my teacher, I might have set the question for myself. The question is, how many players in the Wales squad are older than 29 years old? So that's my first question. So to answer that question, I go to the search icon. What data field am I actually searching? So the question is referring to age, so I'm going to select age. Second box is a good opportunity to revisit these symbols. So more than, less than, more than and equal to, and so on. Equal to, not equal to, and so on. So the question is asking older than 29 years old, so more than. And the value, I need to type in the value. So currently I've got 3 entries. If I type the number 29 in here, suddenly that goes down to 2. So if the question asks me how many players are older than 29 years old, the answer in this instance is 2. If you had a full database full of 30 players, the answer would probably be more around something like 14, 13 maybe. So that's my search. So I can actually save the search by clicking on the floppy disk here. So save query. I'm going to call this question 1. So if my teacher asks me now then, how did he get that answer? What did he have to do to find the answer for question 1? A pupil can go into this folder and open previous queries and click on question 1. That will show then exactly how they came to the answer. What do they put in the search at the top to come up with this answer? So it actually records all your queries. It's a very nice and useful feature. We call this type of search a simple search. So that means you're searching for one search criteria, and the criteria there was the age was more than 29 years old. You can actually develop some more complex searches here, and some more advanced searches by adding something. So instead of having one criteria, I'm going to add another set of criteria here now then. So age is more than 29, and that gives me another row. And the position is centre. So I've looked for two things. Players that are older than 29 years old and they play in the centre position. Obviously my database, it finds one entry. In the real database it could have found 2 or 3 or 4 players possibly. But that's an example of a more advanced or more complex search because you're basing it on 2 sets of criteria rather than 1. Again, I can save this. Question 2. So if I delete the search now then, if a teacher again asks me how did you find the answer for question 2, I can just go into the folder, I can select question 2, and that's my search. That's how I came up with the answer. So the next question now then is, what can we do with this type of data? So we've actually inputted the data, we've done some searches to find some answers to some questions. What can that lead on to? So a good example here now is I can use my findings, so whatever I've found out, I can use them to create another project or another piece of work. So for example, this could lead on to a green screen project. It could lead on to an extended writing. I could write a letter using the facts that I found out using my database. It could lead on to me writing a newspaper report. So I'll use this example now, which I've gathered information about players that play for Wales. I could do that. So for example, Wales are playing France this weekend, so I can do the exact same thing for France, or I can collaborate with another pupil in my class or another set of pupils. We can gather all the data together, we can create one big database collaboratively that gathers information about players from Wales and from France. So what we can do then is we can do similar searches. We can look for the amount of players that play for Wales that are older than 30. We'll do the same thing for France. So the amount of players that play for France that are older than 30. What we can do then is we can see, well, maybe there's 15 players in the Wales squad that are older than 30, but there's only 5 in the French squad that are older than 30. So that can be a base then for my debate. So I can say that Wales are more likely to win the game because they've got more experienced players. And that's backed up with the data that I've actually discovered. So I've found out, as I said previously, there's 15 players in Wales that are older than 30, which shows they've got more experience. That could then lead on to my green screen project. So I'm the sports correspondent for the BBC or for S4C, and I'm at the Stade de France. I've got that as a backdrop on my green screen, and I'm producing a quick report on my predictions for the match. So I think that Wales are going to win because they've got 15 players that are older than 30, so they're a more experienced squad. Compared to France, they've only got 5 players that are older than 30, and I think that experience is going to be crucial this weekend, and I think because of that Wales are going to win. So there, I've used the facts that I've created and that I've found out through my queries on my database. I've used the fact to back up my prediction, to back up my point of view. So I'm using the database, the data handling work, I'm using that to spur on and to create another task altogether. It could be based on height, so I could find out that the average height for Welsh players is higher. So for example, Wales have got 5 players that are taller than 220 centimetres. France haven't got any player that are taller than 220 centimetres. That means Wales are going to benefit more from line-outs, and I can use that fact then to say I think Wales are going to win because they've got tall players, they're going to do better in the line-out, which means that they're going to gain more possession, and that's going to lead on to Wales winning the match. So I'm using the facts that I've found from my database. Again, the context could change. I could be looking at the Second World War. I could be looking at the countries that were fighting during the war, looking at the number of planes they had, the number of ships they had in the navy, the number of soldiers they had on the ground, population of the country, and so on. And I could use the data then to predict the outcome of certain battles based on the data that I can find. For example, I could say in 1941, Germany had X amount of troops on the ground, which made them a bigger force because the Allies only had X amount of troops on the floor. So I could find that data using my database, present it then in a letter to the Prime Minister. You could present it in a newspaper report to say what's going on in the war and so on. So the data that you find here can be used then, as you said, in a task further down the line. So the key point here, make sure that pupils know why they're creating a database, and if you can, find a task that the data they find in the database, a task that could lead on to later on.